The cafeteria of the Stellar Dawn was always loud during meal times. Today was no different. Hundreds of crew members from dozens of species filled the massive dining hall. The air buzzed with conversations in 100 different languages. Translators worked overtime to keep everyone connected. Kalen sat alone at a corner table. He was the only human on the ship. That made him different. Strange. Most species kept their distance. They had heard the stories about humans. Deathworlders. Predators. Dangerous. Kalen didn't mind the isolation much anymore. He had his food, his datapad, and his thoughts. That was enough. Then he heard the crying. His head snapped up. His eyes scanned the cafeteria. There, near the food dispensers, a small group of Velthic cubs huddled together. The Velthic were a reptilian species. They had scales that shimmered in blues and greens. These cubs were young, very young. Their scales were still dull, not yet fully developed. One cub was crying. Its small body shook. The others tried to comfort it, but they looked scared too. Kalen's chest tightened. He knew that fear. He had seen it before in children across the galaxy. Fear of being lost. Fear of being alone. He stood up. Several nearby aliens noticed. They shifted uncomfortably. A human moving with purpose always drew attention. Kalen walked toward the cubs. The cafeteria grew quieter. Eyes followed him. Whispers spread like wildfire. What is he doing? Stay away from the cubs. Someone stop him. Kalen ignored them. He crouched down a few feet away from the group. He made himself smaller, less threatening. Hey there, he said softly. His translator crackled to life, converting his words to Velthic. Are you okay? The cubs froze. Their eyes went wide. One of them, slightly larger than the rest, stepped forward. This one had markings that suggested leadership. Kalen guessed this was Vash, the cub leader he had heard about in crew reports. Vash's voice was shaky but brave. Our teacher. She left to get food. She told us to wait. But she's been gone so long. We don't know where she is. Kalen nodded slowly. That sounds scary. Being alone in a big place like this. Vash nodded. The crying cub whimpered louder. Would you like some help finding her? Kalen asked. Vash looked at the others. They whispered among themselves. Finally, Vash turned back to Kalen. You're a human. I am. They say humans are dangerous. Kalen smiled gently. Some humans can be. Just like some Velthic can be. But I'm not dangerous to you. I promise. I just want to help. Vash studied him. Cubs were good at reading emotions. It was a survival instinct. After a long moment, Vash nodded. Okay. Kalen stood up slowly. Let me check if anyone has seen your teacher. You can come with me if you want. That's when it happened. Vash walked toward Kalen's table. The other cubs followed. Without hesitation, they climbed onto the bench. Then onto the table itself. They sat down right next to Kalen's half-eaten meal. The cafeteria went dead silent. Every eye in the room locked onto the scene. Mouths hung open. Forks stopped midair. A Graxian officer dropped her tray. Cubs didn't approach predators. They didn't climb onto their tables. They definitely didn't sit next to them while they ate. But these cubs did. Vash looked up at Kalen. Can we wait here? It feels safer. Kalen's throat felt tight. He nodded. Of course. You can stay as long as you need. He sat down carefully. The cubs relaxed. The crying one stopped whimpering. It leaned against Vash. Kalen pulled out his datapad. Let me message the crew coordinator. We'll find your teacher. While he typed, something unexpected happened. One of the smaller cubs crawled closer. It sniffed Kalen's hand. Then it pressed its small head against his palm. Kalen froze. He had never touched a Velthic before. Their scales felt cool and smooth. Delicate, the cub made a soft chirping sound. A happy sound. Vash watched this and made a decision. He moved closer too. Soon, all 5 cubs were pressed against Kalen. Some touched his arms. Others leaned against his side. The cafeteria remained silent. But the shock was changing. Softening. A Velthic adult at a nearby table stood up. She was shaking. Those are my students. Kalen looked up. You're their teacher? Yes. I got trapped in a conversation with the quartermaster. I didn't realize how long I'd been gone. She rushed forward, then stopped. Her eyes went wide when she saw the cubs on Kalen's table. How did you? They were scared, Kalen said simply. They needed help. The teacher looked at her cubs. They were calm now. Content. Sitting with a predator as if it was the most natural thing in the world, Vash spoke up. Teacher Sila. The human helped us. He's nice. Teacher Sila's expression changed. She looked at Kalen with new eyes. I, I don't understand. Cubs never approach humans. The instinct should prevent it. Kalen shrugged. Maybe instinct knows something we don't. One of the cubs tugged on his sleeve. Will you eat with us sometime? Kalen smiled. I'd like that. Teacher Sila helped her cubs down from the table. But before they left, Vash turned back. He gave Kalen a small bow. Thank you, Kalen. You're not scary at all. As the cubs left with their teacher, the cafeteria slowly came back to life. But something had changed as a Graxian officer approached Kalen's table. I've never seen anything like that. Kalen picked up his fork. Cubs are smart. They know who's safe. The officer nodded slowly. Perhaps we've been wrong about humans. Perhaps. Word spread quickly through the stellar dawn. By the next day, everyone knew the story. The human who sat with the cubs. The cubs who chose him over their own fear. Crew members who had avoided Kalen before started nodding to him in the corridors. Some even sat near him in the cafeteria. But the biggest change came 3 days later. Kalen was eating lunch when he heard familiar chirping. He looked up. Vash and the other cubs were walking toward him. Teacher Sila followed behind, smiling. May we join you? Vash asked. Kalen gestured to the empty seats. Always. The cubs climbed up. This time, no one gawked. Instead, other species watched with something like wonder. A human and Velthic cubs sharing a meal. Breaking every rule of instinct and fear, Kalen realized something important. Trust wasn't about species. It wasn't about being a predator or prey. It was about showing up. About being kind when others expected danger. The cubs chattered happily around him. Vash told a story about their morning lessons. The crying cub from before now laughed at Vash's jokes. Kalen listened. He smiled. And for the first time since joining the Stellar Dawn, he didn't feel alone. The galaxy was learning something new. Humans could be dangerous. That was true, but they could also be safe. Gentle. Trustworthy. Sometimes, all it took was one human and 5 brave cubs to change everything.